media. Sherry, how are you? And I know you're excited about your guest today.
Hi, Neil. I am excited about him because he ends up being my doctor. And I wanted to bring him on because he's got a unique tactic and technique to work with people. And I'll tell that story in a moment. But his name is Dr. Jim Kabnatic. I know I probably butchered your name.
Close.
It's a hard one to say. I just call him Dr. Jim. And he's
Tanakis, yeah, but that's
Tanakis.
okay. Yeah, she just
Thank
like
you.
most of my patients just call me Dr. Jim. Yeah,
Yeah, well, that's what I call you. And you own Community Natural Health. So welcome, Dr.
that's right.
Jim.
Thank you
So
guys
what
for inviting me.
yeah. So I ended up because I've been in a couple accidents and I had back problems and I ended up having a lot of pain. And I went to a chiropractor and they tried and they said, really, we can't help you. And they gave me Dr. Jim's card and said he can help you. So I went to him and I had sciatic and never had dry needling before, didn't really even know what it was. Holy smoke. It was like electricity shock from my hip down to my toes and back. But I was able to walk, afterwards. I came in there hardly ever, I couldn't even walk hardly. And I left like, wow, it was great. And then I learned that it wasn't exactly acupuncture, it's your own thing. So explain about that. Like what makes what you do different from other people who do dry needling or acupuncture?
That's good. A good question. This the sciatic nerve, like what you were dealing with, is a very common uh, occurrence with people throughout their life. It doesn't matter if you're a teenager or you could be in your 80s. In essence, what happens is you've got a muscle that's kind of close to your sacrum, and it's called the piriformis muscle. And that muscle, probably with Sherry in particular, that muscle had kind of drawn up and had cinched up on her and had squeezed on that sciatic nerve. And a lot of doctors, when people have this type of problem, they're going to send you to get an MRI. First, they'll get an X-ray, and they're going to look at excuse me, they're going to look at your spine, right? They're going to look at your discs, and once you're over 40 years old, typically you're going to have some degeneration in your disc. You may have a bulge disc. You may have a like a hernia, even a slight herniated disc, or you might even have some stenosis. But most of the time, when people have this particular problem, like sciatic nerve pain, it's usually in the joint, this particular joint, this sacroiliac joint, which is kind of closely connected with this piriformis muscle. So what I did with Sherry was, is I used a pretty big needle, like about a 5.5, 6 inch needle, and I went at an angle down into that muscle, and it was spasmed up, it was adhesed, and I pecked around with that needle and I broke that spasm up and took the pressure off that nerve. And a lot of times you're going to have some pretty immediate results from that particular type of procedure. So it's not, although I do acupuncture and I'm sort of trained in that traditional modality. This is a little more like, I guess they call it dry needling. The physical therapists are using that term a lot, but it's not really even that. It's just kind of my own little thing that I kind of came up with because I was seeing this particular type of occurrence with sciatic nerve over and over again with patients. So she fit that mold really, and it was one of these kinds of things that happened rather immediate, and she got some pretty quick relief from that.
Wow. And that's you've learned that really is a method that sets you apart from other people to to alleviate that pain, right?
Yeah, and I my wife uh, did a little printing out of kind of what I was telling you guys, right? All right, so you can you see this?
Mhm.
Yeah.
That Okay, so you got sciatic nerve pain, and you've got this joint, and the sacroiliac joint is right in here, and you have this muscle, the piriformis muscle, and you've got this big nerve that runs behind this muscle, and it's kind of located between your ilium there. And now I was telling my wife earlier today, 30% of people actually have the nerve running through the muscle, and that makes you more prone to this type of problem. But most folks have it run behind. So if that muscle right here gets bound up and squeezed, then it starts pinching down on that nerve, and then you have really, really bad leg pain. And we're talking about electrical pain or numbness, tingling. Sometimes it gets to the point it's so weak where you can't even walk. Okay, so that my little procedure is I go in with this needle, and I'm really kind of breaking up this spasmed up muscle here that's sometimes kind of encroaching on that nerve. And once we free it up, then the nerve can run, freely, and it compels, your leg, it powers your leg. So that's usually what I do with it, you know. That's kind of
Wow.
the is that making sense a little bit? Sort of a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
transition there.
absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah.
It made sense to me at that time.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't see the needle,
Yeah. I
because it was
mean,
behind. So I'm glad you didn't show it to me beforehand. But this is what I found interesting. I've never had anything like this done. Was that when you did that, honest to goodness, it felt like somebody plugged me in, my leg, into an electric socket. There was electricity that went from my hip down to my toes. And it was like, wow. And it wasn't
power.
like a long time. It wasn't like it took like even 5 minutes. So explain why there's that electricity, please.
Absolutely. So, your nerves, they're all electrical, right? And they run on a circuit. So from your spine, your lumbar, lower lumbar, and sacral, you've got all these big nerves filtering out, and your sciatic nerve is the biggest nerve in your body, I believe. And it's like a number two pencil in thickness. Now, a lot of our nerves are really tiny. They're almost like a guitar string, that kind of thinness. But this one particular nerve is super thick, and it branches on out. Like I said, sort of powers your extremities, your leg. So when a nerve is pinched, like a lot of these neurologists, they'll do these nerve conduction tests, right? And they hook you up to needles, and they test your nerves. So if a nerve is running, fluid and transmitting itself properly, then it runs on a certain amperage, right? And if a nerve is being pinched or is inflamed, it actually runs on a different amperage. So when a nerve's pinched like that, it's throwing out these intermittent signals, and a lot of times it's pain. Sometimes, like I said, it could be weakness, numbness. And when I went in there with you and I broke that spasm up, the nerve has to run its circuit. So you felt that electrical sensation run all the way down to your foot, and it runs right back up up to your leg to through your spine, and that really recreates the circuit. So basically, it's like we're resetting that whole peripheral nervous system just by doing that one little shot there in your back.
That's wild. It definitely is something. And what kind of stories do you have for people? Sherry has her story that you've helped people with their pain with dry needling.
Yeah, it's a daily occurrence with this, and this is something that I just kind of stumbled on probably about 10 years ago. I was doing it the more traditional route because you learn this Chinese medicine and you try to do it almost like martial arts, right? You learn a certain discipline, a karate or jujitsu or whatever. You want to stick to that discipline. But I was seeing people coming in and out of this place, and they were limping, and some of them couldn't even walk. And they'd been to chiropractors, they'd been to orthopedic surgeons, they've been to pain management doctors, they've taken pain pills, they've had shots. Some of them have had surgery, unnecessary surgeries because of this type of thing. And I was like, what is going on here? Something is happening. They're getting all these other types of treatments, and they're not having any kind of success. And so I went back and I started looking at the anatomy. I started looking at this particular area of the body, like I said, this SI joint, the piriformis, how this nerve is sort of all interconnected with that. And I was like, something is creating some sort of congestion in there that's interrupting this nerve signal that's causing all these people this degree of pain. And so that's kind of what I figured out. I was like, okay, if I can, I mean, it's not really rocket science. I'm just trying to get into an area with a needle and breaking up that congestion so that muscle will release and that nerve can kind of function properly. And then I was seeing immediate relief a lot of times after the very first treatment, where people coming in, some of them were coming in on walkers. I had young people coming in wheelchairs, and after one treatment, they're able to put weight on their leg. The feeling comes back. It's sore because that nerve's been hot for a long period of time. And after a few minutes, it's almost like when your arm falls asleep and it takes a minute to kind of revive itself. That's the kind of thing that these people were having with their leg, not to mention a bunch of pain. And once you break that spasm up, then everything kind of resets itself, and you can get back to kind of normal living.
Absolutely. It was my first experience. I didn't know what to expect, but I was desperate. I was one of those people who really couldn't walk because the pain was so bad. And I left and I thought, well, I can walk a little bit, but next day I was pretty much back to normal. It was awesome. So I use him a lot. I go to him for a lot of different things because of my experience with him thus far has been so positive and the results are real. And I mean they really are. So when I'm in pain, I have something going on with my back or my neck or hip or whatever, Dr. Jim's the guy I see.
Wow. Sherry, that's amazing. Dr. Jim, how have you been able to be successful in this industry for so many years? What do you think keeps, for someone who might want to do what you do, uh, keep it going where you're able to have many patients and help so many people?
Uh, you know, a lot of times with healthcare, I think what I'm seeing this day and age, it's health care, right? There's two words, health and care. And I think the care element of that is being kind of disregarded a lot. Now, you go to the doctor, it's all about your insurance. You have a limited time with that physician. I see patients that come and see me. They're not real satisfied with their experience going to see a doctor. They give them medication. They send them to physical therapy a lot of times unnecessarily. So I would observe this kind of thing. And like I told you before, not just with this particular problem like the sciatic nerve thing, but with other ailments, a lot of pain conditions. And I would be like, these people don't seem to be getting any better, and they're not satisfied with the care that they've been getting, the conventional care. So really, I think listening to patients has been a big thing with me. The less I run my mouth and the more I listen to them is what I think's made it happen for me. Because when you spend a little bit of time with people, a lot of times they'll tell you, they'll give you these different clues of what's been going on, and everybody's different in as far as their body goes. And I think the patient really knows their body a lot of times just as much as the doctor does, maybe even more so. So you have to listen to what the patient tells you, and then if you do that, then that will kind of lead you down the road a lot of times to helping them. But that would be my biggest advice is that you got to care about people, right? Otherwise, don't even be in healthcare, right? You might as well. There's a lot of people in healthcare that that really, they're kind of in it for other reasons. So that's number one. So you really gotta, when somebody walks in the door, you gotta you gotta have that empathy, right? You gotta check them out and say, man, that person's hurting pretty bad. I've experienced possibly pain like them, and so you got to kind of tune in with that element, and then you have to listen to what they're saying. And if you do, a lot of times between you and the patient, you can figure this thing out together, which I think's been benefited me over the years. I hope that answers your question.
It definitely does. Sherry, what other things you want to add to Dr. Jim and why people need to go see him?
Well, I think it's key to that a doctor listens to the patient, because sometimes the patient knows their body better than anyone. And I've heard too many stories where they haven't, and it's not worked out well. But having that empathy and that care and that time is just, it's awesome. And it really, so I enjoyed that with, that fact. I appreciated that you listened. And again, it's not something that's off in the future. This is something that is, you get real results. And that's what I want. I want results. I don't want promises or perhaps, or, we'll try this and let's see what happens. It is something that really happens.
Hmm.
So being the person who can give you a testimonial, it was great. I've been dealing with this for a while, and it's finally, I feel like it's being addressed.
That's fantastic. That's always the best thing when you figure out ways to decrease pain and have that's got to be the accomplishment, Dr. Jim, that you as a doctor feel once you see someone who's healed, like not healed, but alleviation pain, being able to deal with life without pain, because pain is very, very difficult to deal with.
Yeah, pain is one of these things that we're going to experience in life. I mean, that's just a part of life, right?
Right.
And there are actually some things that you can kind of gain. It sounds kind of crazy, but you can kind of gain from pain and understanding sort of your pain threshold. Like I'll see people that they have a super high threshold for pain, and that can make things a little challenging, right? I'll see little old ladies in their 80s, and they are obviously in a pretty substantial amount of pain, but they're able to endure, and they've been able to condition their body to kind of deal with this pain. And then I've seen big old biker guys that tattooed all over them, and they get like a hangnail, and they're crying like a little girl. So you get this real strong disparity with folks because of their whole threshold for pain, and you know, kind of tuning in to that and understanding each individual patient and how they're sort of responding to that pain is a factor a lot of times in figuring out how to address it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, uh, I because he's been such a unique experience, Neil, as you know, I'm on the road a lot, and I'll start getting the pain, and I think to myself, oh my gosh, I can't wait till I go back into, visit the Greenville area again, and I can go see Dr. Jim, and I'll hold off and see him again, because I know he can do it and he does it right.
100%. Where is the best place people can find information on you, Dr. Jim, if they're in the area you're located?
Yeah, I'm about 30 miles south of Greenville, coming down 85, and I'm in Anderson, which is like I said, not too far on down the interstate. And I have a website. It's Dr. James Acupuncture .com, I believe, and then I've got communitynaturalhealth.com. So you can find me on either one of those.
Wonderful. Just Great information, Dr. Jim, and really enjoyed talking with you, and hope I get to learn more and more about your story. And we'll find out very soon. But appreciate it, Dr. Jim. And go to storehousemediagroup.com right now to schedule a call with Sherry. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you guys. Appreciate
All
you.
right. That was the
Thank
special
you.
simulcast of the Neil Haley Show.